Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast. And here with us today is the one and only James Hipkin, who's a seasoned marketing expert with over 40 years of experience helping brands build meaningful, lasting connections with their customers. Starting his career with global giants like Apple, Visa, and Toyota, James has led high-impact campaigns and developed strategic marketing insights that drive real results. Today, through Inn8ly, he empowers small and medium-sized businesses with AI-driven marketing tools and website solutions designed to simplify digital growth. He's also author of the book Journey to Success: Digital Marketing for Small Business Owners. He's here with us today. James, so excited to have you on the show. In your book, even as early as the title, you tie digital marketing to this idea of entrepreneurial success. And so the question that I have for you to open up the show here is, does every entrepreneur need to excel at digital marketing?
I believe they do. I mean, it's your front door in this world. People will go to the website before they phone, before they drop in. Even if you have brick and mortar, they're still going to go to the website to find your address, to find out, etc. And that's the website is the anchor, or I like to call it the hub, within the wheel that is your digital marketing. The website is the hub, the various channels you're using are the spokes, and the content and messaging strategy is the rim that holds it all together.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those three things working in concert with each other, you have a lot of pretty noise.
I have seen a lot of pretty noise. So you mentioned this. I want to dial in on this kind of spokes conversation. So I've seen a lot of folks say, okay, got to have digital marketing. So I've got to have a blog, I've got to have a podcast, got to have a YouTube channel, got to have punchy content on X, cat photos on Facebook, and AI renderings of me dancing on TikTok, because God knows that's never going to be seen actually happening. But how do you know, like, do you have to do all of those things? How do you know what are the right things to do? Like, how do we put some real strategy behind the decision of which channels to be on and how to use them?
Well, you do not have to be on all things, and in fact, you shouldn't be on all things. The most common mistake I see is business owners standing on their rooftop, shouting at the world at large and telling them how awesome they are. Sorry, the world at large doesn't care. And what you need to do is you need to truly and deeply understand who your best customer is. And I chose my words carefully there. I'm not just saying who your customers are, it's who your best customer is.
Mm.
Most businesses, 80% of their revenue is coming from 20% of their customers. Everybody nods their head, just like you're doing when I say that. But do they know who they are?
Yeah.
So you want to understand who your best customer is, and then you want to document that understanding in the form of sometimes it's called an avatar, sometimes it's called a persona. I don't care what you call it. You need to understand who they are demographically, what they're like as people, the characteristics that they have, what is the pain that they're trying to overcome, and what is the gain that they're hoping to achieve.
Mm.
And that avatar can inform an awful lot of what you're doing, because if you're just shouting random stuff out into the world, it just becomes part of the noise.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about something that actually matters to these best customers, they're going to go, oh, wait, that's for me.
Mm.
But as with most things, strategy has two parts. There's the customer avatar. Many people recognize what that is, and they may even have one. But the other half of it is the buyer's journey. What is the process that the customer goes through as they're completely unaware of what you do? They have no need. And quick side note here, the best marketing in the world is not going to change a customer's need state. If they don't need you, they're not going to see it. Doesn't matter how good it is. Sorry, again. there's a lot of bad news in this one, I'm afraid. What's the transition from being unaware to aware? What causes them to start thinking about it? What are the kinds of questions that they're asking through the consideration phase when they're researching their potential solutions? What are the kinds of questions and obstacles they're trying to overcome in the prospecting stage, where they're trying to choose between 2 or 3 different options? And then what are the questions that they need to get resolved when they're making the buying decision? If you're combining the avatar with the journey map, so you know who you're talking to, what's important to them, what they're trying to achieve, and you're aligning that with their journey. That's why when I described the hub and spoke marketing system, the website is the hub, the media channels are the spokes, and the content and messaging strategy is the rim that holds it all together. Without the rim, it's just a bunch of random pieces of shiny metal, and it doesn't do much, right? With that rim, everything's connected. And the power in marketing comes from the connections, not the things you're doing.
Yeah.
But when you've got those insights, when you know the demographics, you know, if your audience is over 40 and has a college degree, I don't care what your nephew says, you probably shouldn't be in TikTok, right? You know, when somebody has raised their hand and asked for information, you know, give them the information they're asking for. I'll give you an example of this. I'll often ask a business owner, so what do you think the primary objective of your website is? And I'll get a litany of things they want the website to do. And we'll have a quick conversation about the definition of the word primary. There can only be one, right? And oftentimes they will settle on conversion. Okay? Almost always wrong. Conversion may be your primary objective, but it is not the primary objective of your audience. When your audience gets to the website, they're looking for confirmation that you understand their problem and that you have a viable and believable solution for their problem.
Yeah.
So
Good.
the primary objective of the website is not conversion, it's confirmation.
Yeah.
Because when you start thinking like that, you're starting to support the journey that your best customer is on. Another example of this that I like to talk about, it's a bit controversial. Do you mind a little controversy?
Let's do it.
Okay. Stop saying call to action. And I know every business owner, everybody has told them that you need a call to action from the moment they started their business, right? And I'm saying, stop saying call to action.
Why is that?
What you want to do is you want to create pathways, people like you pathways on your website. A pathway is an invitation. A pathway supports the journey that your customers are on. People like you pathways call out to the subsegments in your audience. We did a website recently for a client. They make stone ground organic flour. And they have basically 2 audiences. There's the beginner bakers and there's the artisan bakers. So we created a pathway for each one of them. And when somebody selects one of those pathways, 2 very powerful things have happened. They've told you exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And they've given you permission to give them more information. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Now, functionally, a pathway and a call to action, exactly the same thing. But a call to action is a marketer shouting at a customer and telling them what to do. A pathway is a marketer calling out to subsegments in their audience and inviting them to learn more about what interests them.
Yeah.
Which do you think is going to get the better result?
Oh, yeah. hands down. Yeah, love the idea of a pathway, and it opens the door to, and you just kind of threw this in, but I think it's really important, the fact that there are multiple segments,
Mhm.
because a lot of folks in the marketing space will kind of, they'll go to the primary objective thing, and it's like this universal primary objective for everybody, and
Right.
then that gets conflated with the call to action, and then it can be a bit of a challenge. And I've seen a lot of people just kind of knowing, like, uh, resisting that intuitively. So I like this idea. One of the things that you run into though is trying to talk to too many people all at the same
Right.
time. So when we're thinking about a website for a business, they're helping a couple of segments. How do you help them dial in that primary objective without unnecessarily ostracizing or alienating other segments?
Okay, well, let's talk about that. What's the problem with alienating other segments?
So we'll go to your example with the stone ground flower. I'm assuming that both of those groups were of interest to them, the
Yes.
artisans and the new ones.
Right.
So then, in
What
their example, the cost would be, uh, well, let's say they over index on the new person, and it seems juvenile and doesn't attract the artisan.
Right, and that by creating the pathways, you can speak to both audiences. But one of the essences of marketing, David Ogilvy said this. David Ogilvy is an old ad guy, even older than me. Um, the essence of strategy is sacrifice.
Yes.
If you
I like
try to be all things to all people, you're going to end up being nothing to nobody. And so the making those decisions around who are we trying to attract
Mm,
are fundamental, and that means that you're it's as important to repel the wrong customers as it is to attract the right customers.
yes.
And when you understand who your avatar is, you understand who your customer is, you also understand who they aren't. When you understand the journey that your customer is on, you're addressing the questions that your best prospect has. You're, in essence, repelling the folks who really aren't a good fit for you.
Mm,
You know, when I took over an advertising agency in San Francisco earlier in my career, I was recruited out of Chicago and they shipped me to California. Um, Within the first 6 months, I'd fired about one third of the clients.
wow.
They weren't a good fit. They
Mm,
weren't a good fit for what we were trying to do with the business. That we weren't a good fit for where we were trying to take the business.
yeah.
Staff turnover went down, profitability went up, and growth was ignited.
Yeah.
You know, these a lot of these customers that aren't a good fit for you are sucking up your energy, sucking up your value, not giving you value in return. A business relationship is a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yes.
The customer needs to receive value and the business needs to receive value. This is not an interpersonal relationship. It's a commercial relationship. And the distinction between those two things is another concept that it's important for a business owner to wrap their head around. A
Mm,
lot of times people conflate the, you know, rules for interpersonal relationships into business relationship, and a lot of them do match up, but a few fundamental ones don't.
yeah. That's so true. So let's say they've taken the time, they've crafted a strategy, they've picked what they hope are the right channels. But there's this thing in the back of their mind, either by virtue of fear or boredom, that did we pick the right ones? Are we running the right strategy? And so when you're working with a founder, how do you suggest that they think about measuring effectiveness and the time of that? How do you know if it's working and how long should that take?
Well, how long it takes is a different question. You can start to see results pretty quickly when you start to measure. And that's a missing link oftentimes. We run across people and, have had some considerable success, but we're like, do you know what's driving the success? And they don't.
Yeah.
So we'll do a simple thing like starting to add UTM tracking codes into all of their links. And that allows us to use Google Analytics to determine, okay, so you're spending all this money on YouTube. You've hired this agency that specializes in YouTube. You're doing all this amazing content on YouTube. You're not getting any traffic from YouTube.
Right.
So, couple things. Either you got to reassess what it is you're doing over in YouTube to start generating traffic, or you need to stop putting money there.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how often we see this where
Yeah.
people are like, but I've been doing Instagram for years. I said, that's fine, but you've been getting no traction for years. Just because you've been doing it doesn't mean you should keep doing it.
Yeah. So we're measuring traffic. We've got a clear pathway set up. How long until that starts showing up on the top line of the organization's P&L?
Well, usually depends on the media channel, but you need to give it some time. If you're seeing traction, you need to start, watering the flowers and pruning the weeds. And one of the most important factors of digital marketing is that patience is absolutely essential.
Mm.
Because while things are really important to you in your bubble, from your audience's point of view, from the customer's point of view, you are barely a speck in the horizon in terms of all the things that they're dealing with. So it takes time to break through.
Yeah.
Earlier in my career, I worked on a loyalty program for a large telecommunication company. Now, this was a $2 billion base of business. Okay. And I sat down with the marketing director and I explained to him in our very first meeting, I need you to stop spending so much money. He damn near
Wow.
fell off his chair. He's like, wait, what? Um, because 80% of your audience doesn't care and they're never going to care. It's a low interest category for them. They're just not engaged. However, 20% of your audience cares a great deal.
Yeah.
You need to understand who they are. You need to start crafting your marketing to appeal to them. The result will be you'll spend less money because you're focusing more on the people who actually matter. So they bought this strategy from us. It took about a year. It's a very big business, right? It takes a long time. It took about a year to put everything together. And at the end of the second year, I sat down with him and I said, so how are we doing? And he said, well, market share has not changed, but we've generated 20% revenue growth on a $2 billion base of business.
Wow.
And it's all traceable to your program.
Wow. That's awesome.
Okay. It takes time. You've
Yeah.
got to have belief. Use your measurement to start to see the action because you'll start seeing results pretty quickly. How those results go down into the top line, that takes some time.
Yeah.
But they, keep pushing the stuff that's working and stop pushing the stuff that's not working.
Yeah. That's so true. I love there. It's also picking the right measurements, right? If they were
Mhm.
just going after market share, they'd miss the whole thing together and they'd have
Yep.
been spending, gobs more than they were as well. So picking the right metrics really, really matters.
Mhm.
So, James, there's a question that I ask all my guests, and I'm very intrigued to see what you have to say. All right. So here's a question. What would you say is the biggest secret you wish wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish everybody watching and listening today knew?
You don't need to try to boil the ocean. I mean, you've touched on it several times in the questions that you've asked today. So your instincts are there. You really don't need to try to do everything. You need to do the stuff that is actually getting engagement with your audience. And then when you figured out how to do it, figure out how to do it better.
Hmm.
And I wish I'd learned that earlier in my career, but over the course of my career, I spend a lot of time saying no to clients. That's just No, not right now. Not right now. We got to stay focused on this because this is what's getting us traction. We have to do it better. We have to build on what's working, not distract ourselves with like whatever's shiny and new.
Yeah. So true. So true. James, there's some folks listening and they could use a voice like yours, helping them craft the right strategy, saying no to the right things, saying yes to the right things. Where can they find more out about you and the work that you guys do?
Well, there are a couple things. If you go to vipchatwithjames.com, you can grab some time on my calendar. I love to hear from business owners. I love to hear the problems that they're facing, challenges that they're trying to overcome. It's very valuable, great insights. If you want to understand more about your audience, we've developed a product called Marketing Sage Advantage. That's sage as in the smart person, not the stuff you burn and that smells nice. MarketingSageAdvantage.com is a tool that we've created where we've harnessed the power of AI to analyze customer interviews using an interview guide that we've prepared. And that will generate a really viable avatar and buyer's journey map that a marketer can then use to transition their marketing from pretty noise to marketing that actually engages with real people and generates real results.
I love that. I love that. Fantastic tools. We'll get both of those links in the show notes for you all so you don't have to go look for them. VIPchatwithjames.com and marketingsageadvantage.com. Do check them out. James and his team are just a wealth of resource and knowledge, and you cannot go wrong there. James, thanks for being on the show. Just a privilege having you here. Some amazing stories and insights that are going to be a massive help for some folks listening. And for those of you who are listening, you know your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.